So, we're in book 6. We've landed on Scheria, the Isle of the Phaeacians. We know that Odysseus barely managed to survive and got out by the skin of his teeth, by, his naked self, to Scheria. He threw Ino's shawl back into the ocean so she could retrieve it, because that was part of the deal. And he fell asleep under 2 olive trees. He doesn't really know where he is. He doesn't quite entirely know what's going on. And he's going to, start meeting some people in this moment. We know that Athena's keeping an eye on him. She helped him to not die in the moment where Poseidon churned the ocean up like nobody would believe. And naked and afraid in 1000 BC. Yeah, basically. How long it takes for Odie to get some clothes on? Ooh, you guys can have that bet. Has a hero ever refused an object for more kleos? Not that I can think of. Usually the object being given to them is not meant to affect their ability to get kleos. It means that they are in a situation where human shit ain't gonna cut it. Meeting people completely naked, yeah. Didn't Athena put him to sleep as well once he washed up on shore? She kind of helped, but he was already exhausted. The man had just nearly died several times over in the water. Could the naked thing be a metaphor? Interesting. I will let you guys all think on that topic, and see if you still think that as we continue through this. Because if he shed his past, he is about to then launch into the whole story of his past. So do we really think he has shed it? No, those are good questions. Marissa, you guys can think on that. So, book 6. The Princess and the Stranger. It's time to meet some Phaeacians. Okay. Are we all settled in to begin the reading? We're just naked. He's very much naked in a literal sense, correct. I'm going to assume we're all settled in, so I will start reading. Book 6, The Princess and the Stranger. So there he lay at rest, the storm-tossed great Odysseus, borne down by his hard labors, first and now, deep sleep, as Athena traveled through the countryside and reached the Phaeacians' city. Years ago, they lived in a land of spacious dancing circles, Hyperia, all too close to the overbearing Cyclops, stronger, violent brutes who harried them without end. So mentioning Hyperia, this land that they're from, and the Cyclops, these are likely not the exact same Cyclops that Odysseus encounters on his travels. So there's, as with many things in Greek myth, inconsistencies on the Cyclops, who are they, their origin. It is best to think of them simply as just a particular race of creature. They appear in multiple myths, and again, they have a range of origins. You can see, again, we are going to meet Polyphemus, who's apparently the son of Poseidon and another nymph, and then Hesiod has a whole thing where he talks about the Cyclops and where they come from. So pick your poison variations on a theme. We are talking about other Cyclops, or Cyclopes. They absolutely are characters that appear in a wide variety of myth. So their godlike king, Nausithous, led the people off in a massed migration, settled them in Scheria, far from the men who toil on this earth. He flung up walls around the city, built the houses, raised the gods' temples, and shared the land for plowing. So Nausithous, father of the current king, is actually as we had said before, he's a son of Poseidon. He's a son of Poseidon and a character called Bia. The OEAs always throw me. And she's, in fact, the daughter of Eurymedon, who was king of the Gigantes, aka the antagonist of the Gigantomachia. So we're linking all the way back to there. So let's do what are dancing circles? These were found in a lot of rites and rituals and festivals, is dances, literally dancing. If you ever look up Greek dancing now, you'll see that a lot of it is done kind of almost in lines and in circles. It's just a type of dance. Periboia, yeah, I never know how to say those names correctly. They always throw me off. The OEs drive me, I always get messed up. Okay, so Homer actually describes at one point Eurymedon as being great-hearted. I think the Greek word is megalitoros, but his people, these gigantes, are described as insolent and forward. Now, the gigantes, who from the Gigantomachia, again, this War of the Giants, Hesiod claimed the gigantes were born when Kronos slayed his father Uranos, and that the blood from his father's castration fell onto Gaia, and thus came the gigantes. Now, Apollodorus, a later writer, will also claim they are children of Gaia and Uranos in that way, but he doesn't mention the castration specifically, so that might have been something that Hesiod was pulling a very specific detail, and then later Apollodorus, decided not to add that detail. Again, this is part of the thing where there's going to be inconsistencies and variations on a theme between the different writers who are all writing across even different ages. Yeah, it's that blood. Oh, read all the symbolism, Mari, read all of it. Yeah, one sentence encapsulates so much history. That's the thing where I'm like, I'm glad I get to give all this, because this is stuff, they know who these characters are. This would mean stuff to the Greeks, but us, we're like, who the heck are these guys? Why do I care? They were such freaks and crying, correct? Yeah, like a dark, more violent version of Aphrodite's birth, absolutely. So the name of these gigantes, their name is taken by a lot of scholarship to imply being earthborn. The Gegenes or Gegeneis, Gegeneis. This is where we start watching all of my Greek pronunciation flounder. Which actually became a common epithet for the gigantes. They were known as the earthborn gigantes. But what's interesting is that, contrary to what their name might suggest, this idea of these giants, they were a race of creatures, if you will, that were great in strength and in aggression, but not necessarily in size. So, they weren't actually necessarily massive giant beings. They were just really strong and really aggressive. So what's interesting is, visual representations of these creatures, if you will. You go into Yenis. Oh, I always forget the G's are pronounced like Y's. I'm still going to call them the gigantes because I'm messing up. I'm sure it's something more like Yayantes. My bad, but thank you, G. So later visual representation of these characters, if you get into the Archaic Age and the Classical Age, shows these characters as having a very fully human-like form. But there is some later, post-classical, getting into the Hellenistic era, where they start also depicting them as having, snakes for legs, as if to make them more monstrous. Similar to Norse Jotun, a race not to note size until you get to the ones who are giant. Yes, Game Wizard, exactly. And what's also interesting is the gigantes, these creatures are often confused in, modern interpretations and adaptations with the Titans. But, make no mistake, these are very different characters. They are not the same. Don't go mixing up your Titans and your giants. So, crucial thing. All the anger and strength of a giant in a small body. Got it. Yeah, pretty much an average size body. They're normal human sized, basically. So this leads then into, why are they so famous? You have the Gigantomachia, right? And it's a really interesting bit of myth because, I'll be real, we don't really have a lot of archaic sources for it, and what little we have no complete source. We don't have anything like an Argonautica or an Odyssey or an Iliad or something that just sits down and gives us the whole story front to back, and we don't have it in archaic sources. So when I talk about archaic sources, Homer's epics and Hesiod were codified. They were written down in what's called the Archaic Age. So this is before you get to classical Athens, and so pre-Persian War stuff, right? We don't have really anything for the Gigantomachia that is a complete breakdown of it. And Homer and Hesiod don't even really explicitly talk about it. I mean, Hesiod in the Theogony does say that the muses sing of the giants, but he doesn't really go too far beyond that. And you do have a poet named Xenophanes who makes reference to the Gigantomachia, and basically all he says about it is that it's a subject that's best not discussed, or even avoid it when at the table telling stories. So it's wow, okay, what was this thing? But the oldest written records we have were just we don't have a complete picture. So it's really not until you get to Apollodorus with his famous book called the Bibliothèque, the library, where he kind of made the first sort of encyclopedia version of the myths. Yeah, the peg purse, I know. Apollodorus is the first one to give us a really detailed account, and he tells us that the Gigantomachia was started by a particular Gigantes called Alcyoneus, and that's because he stole the cattle of Helios. Cattle of Helios just showing up everywhere causing problems, right? Like, can you believe? And Apollodorus also suggests that these Gigantes were born by Gaia specifically as revenge over her anger about the imprisonment of the Titans, which would seriously contradict the earlier stuff about how the Gigantes came about, since that would have been prior to the downfall of the Titans, as it was when Cronus overthrew Uranus. But again, inconsistencies. You will get a lot of them. I know, the damn cattle, cow problems everywhere. Cows cause so many problems. Just do not steal cows, okay? Look. Rule of thumb, don't steal cows, no matter whose they are. Leave the cows alone. I know, seriously, it's always the cows. But these Gigantes, once they are born, however that may, or whenever that may be, they are described as being, again, they are so strong and so aggressive, they like hurl rocks and like burning trees up at the sky. Like they are flouting the might, essentially, of the gods. And there was, so with the Gigantomachia, a specific prophecy that claimed these Gigantes could not be killed by the gods alone, and they would need the help of a mortal. So, which is very important because this is how the Gigantomachia ends up playing out. And it's also important that, okay, yes, well, the giant that Hermes eventually slays, I don't think he's part of this race. I don't think he's one of the Gigantes, unless I said they are. I could be wrong. Specific, you know what? Let's look that up very quickly, because that's Argos, I believe. Argus giant. Let's double check. I don't think he's one of this particular race. I know he is a giant, but I don't think he's one of those giants. It just says he's a giant. Say he's earthborn. Oh, maybe. Born from Gaia. Other version, the son of Gaia, primordial giant. Okay, maybe, I mean, they do call him Earthborn. He does have that epithet, so maybe he is. Argus, I think specifically we're talking then the Titanomachia, sorry, not the Titanomachia, the Gigantomachia, very specifically. Like, this uprising cannot be quelled by the gods alone. It's counted. You better get out of here, you indie addict. I know, so many Peg snoring sounds. She's just napping through this whole thing. So there was this Alice, I'm getting to it, but nice catch. You are correct. Gaia heard this prophecy as well. So she was seeking out a specific plant called Pharmakon, which was supposedly going to be able to help the giants to, like, not have this prophecy come true. But, you know, it's really hard to fight fate and prophecy. Basically impossible. So Zeus actually goes to Eos, Selene, or Selene, and Helios, so dawn, moon, and sun, and says, don't shine. He says, don't show up, just chill, stay at home. This is, you get to be whole introverts for a while. So that essentially the earth is plunged into darkness, and that's so he can then go and harvest all of that plant himself, because he can't risk these giants coming to overthrow. Oh, Mariana, is this where we're reading about Aeschylus? Great, please, Mariana, please check this. For those of you who don't know, Mariana is one of our many people who reads all these stories in, like, Greek and the like, so she gets to provide really fun context. So, anywho, wow, we get this plant so that Gaia can't use it to make take the day off sun, moon, and dawn. No, literally, take the day off. Total darkness, I need to get this plant and can't have Gaia being able to see what's happening, right? So, while he's doing that, he sends Athena to get Heracles, who, because Heracles is truly the hero of heroes. He is the GOAT. There is nobody like him in all of mythology. Like, and there's a reason he gets remembered as he does even to this day. Yes, Alice, you are correct. It is Heracles. Now, Heracles, of course, does assist them in defeating the Gigantes. Very specifically, he's noted for actually defeating the two of the strongest Gigantes using not only his bow and arrows, but his bare hands. No joke. There was a whole thing where one of the giants, one of these Gigantes, could not be killed, like, on his like home turf, like as long as his feet sort of like touched the earth. So Heracles literally grabs this dude physically, barehanding it, and rips him out of that territory and then just like crushes him to death. And obviously Zeus and the others help. All of the other Gigantes especially are killed by other Olympians in combination with Heracles. But like, yo, Heracles' greatest asset, the reason we talk about his strength, is he could legit just kill shit with his bare hands. And he does many times in the mythology. It's nuts. It's insane. That is why Heracles was just like, bruh, yeah, what a man. Like, woof, okay, sir. I mean, after all, that's how he defeats the Nemean lion. He basically crushes it to death because its pelt was impenetrable and there was no other way to kill it. Yeah, no, Heracles is the dude. There's a reason why when he's basically on his deathbed and dying, the gods essentially bring him up and immortalize him. They make him divine. He does have a human shade that goes to the underworld. We're going to meet it in the underworld in the Odyssey, but he gets to ascend essentially to minor godhood and then marry the goddess of eternal youth, the daughter of Hera, which is a big deal that she offers her daughter to Heracles in marriage, kind of as a thank you for what he did during the Gigantomachia, and also in a way like an apology for making his life a fucking hell for most of his life when it wasn't his fault. Yeah, these are the standards. Are you gonna grapple men to their death? I don't think so. Exactly. Heracles is just him. He really is. Heracles bash a man with another, we laugh. I mean, honestly, Heracles is just that dude. He'd be able to fight the gorilla by himself. Honestly, if the gorilla wasn't bothering him, he'd probably leave it be, but if he had to fight the gorilla, yeah. Heracles, I would actually potentially put my money on Heracles on that one. He's just that dude. He's a Chad. Alpha male goals. Yeah, he is. It's just like, again, that's why I always say anybody is like, but Heracles, and I'm like, do not compare any hero with Heracles. It's just like, even back then they would go, who are you trying to compare with Heracles? You just can't. The dude is just... Okay, oh, Mariana, yes, Argos, the loud born from the earth with the many eyes, it's him. Argos Panoptes. Yes, that is Argos. Does it... Okay, so Mariana, are they saying he specifically loud born from the earth? So he is one of these Gigantes. He is part of the same kind of race. Because I noticed he also has that same like epithet, the Earthborn. So yeah, that's interesting. So I guess that would mean this prophecy very specifically means in the Gigantomachia, a god alone cannot kill these giants because they're like the most powerful of them, the strongest of them. So it's like you're gonna also need the help of the guy. The guy. Heracles equals Hercules. Yes, you are correct. Hercules is the Latinization or the Romanization of his name. The guy. No, he is the guy. He gets that name. Love it. But yeah, so don't you love how just, we've made what? Just over 10 lines and I've had to tell you the whole like spiel, speedrun of the Gigantomachia. That is how much is buried in here. Where like this context, it was all there for the Greeks because they'd heard these stories. What a man, exactly. But there you go. So these people, this race, this Phaeacians are descended, that's why they call them like they who are close to the gods themselves. They have bloodlines that are very much linked to a lot of these more divine figures. The gods got their unrealistic expectations of mortals from Heracles. Is Apollon the Greek version of Apollo's name, or is it Apollo in both Greek and Roman? As far as I know, it's Apollo in both Greek and Roman, though I'm sure there might be variations of Apollon in Greek, but somebody can correct me. I've always just known it as Apollo and Apollo. I genuinely think Heracles would solo at least half the Greek verse. No, literally, Akari, he would. Without question. And he wouldn't even be trying that hard, to be honest. That's how much of the guy he is. Yeah, but if he's not Heracles, do I even want him? Yes, it's the same. He appears... Oh, he's in Prometheus Bound as he's following Io's cow prince. Oh, thank you, Mariana. You are correct. Wow, it's been a while since I read Prometheus Bound. It's been a while since I read a lot of Aeschylus. But yes, thank you, Mariana, for having that. This is why I love all of you guys in the chat who have all these places that you bring info and such. It's so great. Okay. Anyway, back to the Phaeacians. Hi, Tassine. Thank you for joining. I'm trying to see if there's anything else I wanted to say here on the Phaeacians before I keep going. Okay, no, we're good. But his fate had long since forced him down to death, and now Alcinous ruled, and the gods made him wise. Straight to his house the clear-eyed Pallas went, full of plans for great Odysseus' journey home. She made her way to the gaily painted room where a young girl lay asleep, a match for the deathless gods in build and beauty, Nausicaa, or Nausicaa, depends how you want to pronounce the double A's, the daughter of generous King Alcinous. Two handmaidens fair as the Graces slept beside her, flanking the two posts with the gleaming doors closed. So what is Heracles' fault? Like, genuine question. I'm assuming he has something messes up. Okay, so Hermes, great name. That's a misconception on the idea of the hamartia and the fatal flaw. These characters are all very flawed, but they don't always have like one specific flaw that leads to their doom. Although there is the idea of the hamartia, that's very specific to Athenian tragedy. Heracles predates that. His own wildness is usually the thing that's shown to be kind of his negative aspect, is he can go a little wild. Not always his fault, but he exists in this interesting state at like the pinnacle of like human physicality, but there's also a kind of wildness to him that's almost animalistic, and it can kind of go too far in ways. What did the Minotaur do? Eat people. Consume human flesh. That's what the Minotaur did, fun fact. So, the Graces, the Charites, these are minor goddesses who personify beauty and grace. Hesiod numbers them as 3, and says they are daughters of Zeus and Eurynome, who's a daughter of Oceanus. They are known as Aglaea, who is splendor, Euphrosyne, who is joy, and Thalia, who's good cheer. Now, obviously, if you get to then Homer, there must be either more than 3, or there's differences there, because Homer actually names another very famously named Pasithea in the Iliad, because Hera actually offers Pasithea in marriage to the god Hypnos in return for his assistance, because she's like, I know you have a crush on this girl, do this one massive favor I'm about to ask you, and I will give her to you in marriage. So that's who the Graces are. They are these minor goddesses who are personifications of various beauty and grace elements. Aglaea, Thalia, and Euphrosyne. And then you also get, again, Pasithea. And this is why everybody has so many names. Yeah, exactly, so many names. The human ladies get no choice. Well, these guys aren't even human, they're goddesses. But generally, yes, women are given in marriage to somebody, which means if they're given the choice to choose a husband, it's a big deal. Mostly you only see some goddesses getting to choose who they take as lovers or even to husband. And then you have elements like Helen and Penelope, well, really more Helen, who got to choose who she married. Okay. If a mortal has a godly bloodline or parentage, how are they distinguished from demigods? Nirvana, demigods aren't a thing. That's a modern invention. Demigods are not a thing in Greek mythology. That concept doesn't exist. So that's a far more modern invention, because they just assume that, like, oh, you have divine blood, you must be special. And it's like, do you know how many children of gods who are like a parent of a god and have a godly parent and a mortal parent, or are running around in the Greek myth? They're everywhere. There's nothing special about it. Not even Aphrodite got to choose, I think. No, she didn't. And that was mostly because Zeus was trying to avoid a fight between all the other males on Olympus. And he's like, yeah, I know who did that too. But she chose lovers all over the place. Is Hephaestus a demigod? No, he's a full god. He's an Olympian. He's a god. He's the son of Hera, fully just Hera. He's fully divine. In some times he's said to be a son of Zeus, but most myths say that he just has the one parent, and that's Hera. Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't the virgin goddesses also need Zeus's permission to stay virgins? His permission, not necessarily, more like they asked him to back them up on that choice. Like Artemis and Athena and the like basically said, Dad, we don't want to have to get married and all of that. Back us up on this, which he agreed to. You're mortal or you're god. Your dad is Zeus, so what? Exactly. Correct. Okay. Anyway. We're going to meet Nausicaa. I'm going to figure out how I want to pronounce that. But the goddess drifted through like a breath of fresh air, in face and form like the shipman Diomedes' daughter, a girl the princess's age and dearest to her heart. Disguised, the bright-eyed goddess chided. Nausicaa, how could your mother bear a careless girl like you? Look at your fine clothes, lying here neglected. With your marriage not far off, the day you should be decked in all your glory, and offer elegant dress to those who form your escort. That's how a bride's good name goes out across the world, and it brings her father and queenly mother joy. Come, let's go wash these clothes at the break of day. I'll help you, lend a hand, and the work will fly. You won't stay unwed long. The noblest men in the country court you now, all Phaeacians just like you, Phaeacia born and raised. Oh, excuse you. Thank you so much for that. Sorry about that. So come, the first thing in the morning, press your kingly father to harness the mules and wagon for you, all to carry your sashes, dresses, glossy spreads for your bed. It's so much nicer for you to ride than to go on foot. The washing pools are just too far from town. With that, the bright-eyed goddess sped away to Olympus, where, they say, the god's eternal mansion stands unmoved, never rocked by gale winds, never drenched by rains, nor do the drifting snows assail it. No, the clear air stretches away without a cloud, and a great radiance plays across the world, where the blithe gods live all their days in bliss. There Athena went, once the bright-eyed one had urged the princess on. Dawn soon rose on her splendid throne, and woke Nausicaa finely gowned. Still beguiled by her dream, down she went through the house to tell her parents now, her beloved father and mother. She found them both inside. Her mother sat at the hearth with several waiting women, spinning yarn on a spindle, lustrous sea-blue wool. Her father she met as he left to join the lords at a council island nobles asked him to attend. Which, let's note, saying they have sea-blue wool, they got shmoney. Blue is a very difficult color to make with dyes, like truly. If we're describing this as being blue, which again, let's remember the Greeks didn't really have words for color in terms of like shade and hue, but as it's been translated as blue, we are trying to emphasize, yo, these guys well off. They got shmoney. They're getting blue dye. Because that's hard to get. It's extremely hard to get. You can go through all the history of even art with how expensive things like blue paint are. Because blue is just a very difficult color. So yes, and also again, I think I had noted in the previous book, but if I didn't, I'll say it here, that the Phaeacians and this island of Scheria is probably one of our earliest written down examples of what might be called something akin to a utopic society. So it makes sense that they've got shmoney and just blue dye. Like blue was fancy. We are very fancy here. This is it's a well-off place. They rich, exactly. And like we go through these levels, which interesting is going from like book 3 to 4 and now to book 6. You get different levels of how rich are they, because we go from, I mean, Ithaca's, let's remember they're kind of like the backwoods. They're well off, but they're not like the mainland. And then we get to Pylos where we're like, shit, they rich. And then we get to Sparta, we like, they rich. And now we're on Scheria, we like, they rich. Yes, the crazy rich ancient Greeks. The crazy rich Phaeacians, like, oh my god. Purple's the same thing, because you need blue to make purple. So yeah, purple and blue are like the two real fancy colors. I need an annotation where everyone on Ithaca sounds like a hick. Shit, do I need to do that for some of the accents later? Maybe I will. Oh my god. Hermes, how dare you reference that song? It's gonna be stuck in my head now. Here, laundry takes the place of other use of sheets. But the trip outside the town, they need to talk to the father. There's a parallel here about Kinos act very differently from Io's father. Yeah. Correct. Mariana, I love you dropping lore in the chat. Do it, Matt. When we get back to Ithaca, I'll see if there's any characters I can... You know what? Maybe we'll make a particular character, Melantius, speak with like as absolutely offensively southern an accent I can give him. Because frankly, he sucks, so I don't care if I give him that accent. Now, we'll keep the suitors just as their Valley mean girls, but some of them I'll just throw on the ridiculous accent. Sea purpled. Yeah, so Jem, that's where you'll get variations in translations, because again, the Greeks didn't have words for color in terms of saying like blue, green, purple, whatever. They talked about color in terms of light and dark. It's why you get that phrase, the wine dark sea. So is it blue? Is it purple? Is it green? Is it a combination of that? We don't know. So a translator kind of gets room to pick whatever color they want, but going with a blue or a purple and the like makes sense, because again, those are extremely expensive dyes and difficult to get. And so we're saying shmoney. We got dish money. How far in are we? We are around line 60. Not very far. We had to take a big, brief tangent to talk about the Gigantomachia because it kind of got obliquely referenced. Oh, okay, hold on here. One of the theories for the Bronze Age collapse is the amount of money wasted on building all these palaces modeled after the Minoan architecture, leading to raiding Troy, a prominent trade hub. Interesting. I mean, it is true we have a Bronze Age collapse that in Greece. That is kind of what the Trojan War mythologically is meant to represent. It's them trying to cope and understand with what led to the collapse of Bronze Age Greece, because you then get a period in history known as the Greek Dark Ages, where we just kind of have a black hole of archaeological and written record evidence. Like, we're just missing shit. There's a whole section where it's just like, what happened? We don't really know. There's, unfortunately, we don't have anything specific. And then you get into the Archaic Age, which is where you start getting Homer and Hesiod. And then you have the Classical Age, which is like Athenian tragedy. And then Hellenistic Age, that's Alexander the Great. And then we move on to like the Romans and stuff. Complete off-topic question regarding ancient Greek linguistics, but I don't want to pull you off stories at all, right? Or would you rather I wait until later? Hermes, if you could hold on to that question, and I'm also not entirely sure I might be able to answer it, but hold on to that question. If I can't answer it, I will later on. And if not, turn to Mariana or anybody else as long as they're still here and they know. So if you could hold on to that question, that would be great. By the way, about the married thing, could Athena actually mean Telemachus, not Odysseus? Oh, where she says you're going to be soon married? I don't think she's specifically talking about Telemachus. It's just that Nausicaa is of age to be married. Like, she's about to probably be married soon. Negotiations would have been going on somewhere, likely on Scheria, to get married, because she's talking about all of your suitors are Phaeacian born. Because obviously the Phaeacians, again, they're kind of this interesting little insular utopia. Like, they build these high walls, and as much as they are very great to the gods, they really do not want to associate with other people, which is part of why Odysseus is going to behave the way that he does, because he is a stranger and they don't get strangers. And so it's whole thing. Athena, secret matchmaker. Where was I? There we go. She stepped up close to him, confiding, "Daddy, dear, I wonder, wouldn't you have them harness a wagon for me? The tall one with the good smooth wheels, so I can take our clothes to the river for a washing? Lovely things, but lying before me all soiled. And you yourself, sitting among the princes, debating points at your council, you really should be wearing spotless linen. Then you have 5 sons, fully grown in the palace, 2 of them married, but 3 are lusty bachelors, always demanding crisp shirts fresh from the wash when they go out to dance. Look at my duties, and all rests on me." So she coaxed, too shy to touch on her hopes for marriage, young, warm hopes in her father's presence. But he saw through it all and answered quickly, "I won't deny you the mules, my darling girl. I won't deny you anything. Off you go, and the men will harness a wagon, the tall one with the good smooth wheels, fitted out with a cradle on the top." Again, so many girl dads. They're all over the place. Girls know how to work their dads in these stories. With that, he called to the stablemen, and they complied. They trundled the wagon out now, rolling smoothly, back to the mule team into the traces, hitched them up while the princess brought her finery from the room and piled it into the wagon's polished cradle. Her mother packed a hamper, treats of all kinds, favorite things to refresh her daughter's spirits, poured wine in a skin, and as Nausicaa climbed aboard, the queen gave her a golden flask of suppling olive oil for her and her maids to smooth on after bathing. Yeah, nothing but the best for my girl, exactly. Wow, they are rich. No, really, exactly. They rich. Then, taking the whip in hand and glistening reins, she touched the mules to a start, and out they clattered, trotting on at a clip, bearing the princess and her clothes, and not alone. Her maids went with her, stepping briskly too. Greek fathers? No, Greek girl dads. Yes. The eternal phrase that I can't remember who said it first was Greeks love their daughters, but not necessarily women, which is a not entirely wrong way to take it. Was olive oil expensive? Yes and no. Actually, you know what? I don't really have a good enough answer for you because I do not know enough. And even though this is Bronze Age, the economy levels of like how much did olive oil cost? What did it mean to have lots of it? It would likely mean that you are able to raise, you know, an olive grove. You might have an olive tree yourself and you make it yourself. I'm not entirely sure. I'd like to say kind of like maybe. I don't know. Yeah, as Game Wizard says, I would imagine it depends on the quality. That's sort of why I was saying yes and no. It's like, I imagine like really high quality olive oil, however it was the ancient Greeks viewed like what is high quality, that was probably more expensive. And if you had a lot of very high quality olive oil, that would be like, oh, so you got shmoney. Got it. Because oil was used frequently as part of sort of the bathing process. So the more wealthy you are, the better your oil. It still is. So yes, yeah, I guess we'll just kind of default to probably yes. But I don't have a concrete answer for you. Probably based on Athens' economic state at the time, specifically in the classical age, yes. But this, remember, is being written in the Archaic Age and talking about the Bronze Age. So we're before really the power of Athens, the way that it grew post the Persian Wars. Yeah, because Odysseus had a marriage bed carved from olive trees, so rich people problems. Yeah, there you go. What was olive oil used for back then, like the majority of its uses? Washing and bathing. They would use oil often to clean themselves and like moisturize, basically. Would have been used in cooking. So it had a ton of uses, basically. Oil was used all over the place. It was olive trees were useful in so many ways, and oil was a major product that came from it because it had a lot of uses. Greeks tanned. Yes, they did. Look, my youngest brother, who very much has a lot of the Greek genetics, like physically, he turns nut brown in like a second out in the sun. They tan, and they tan fast. It's that good Mediterranean bloodline. So you would put yourself in oil. It's like, not like you douse yourself, but you cover yourself in the oils, and you sometimes later, the Romans would do that, and they had like a tool they would use to strip, like oil stripping basically. So it would help get dirt and grime off, and then you would put some on usually afterwards to basically, yeah, like moisturize, you could say. Has anyone tried to bathe with it? I have never used olive oil in the process of putting it on my skin. No thanks, I'm solid. I'm good. Once they reached the banks of the river, flowing strong where the pools would never fail, with plenty of water, cool and clear, bubbling up and rushing through to scour the darkest stains, they loosed the mules out from under the wagon yoke and chased them down the river's rippling banks to graze on luscious clover. Down from the cradle they lifted clothes by the armload, plunged them into the dark pools, and stamped them down into the hollows, one girl racing the next to finish first, until they'd scoured and rinsed off all the grime. Then they spread them out on a line along the beach, where the surf had washed a pebbly scree ashore. And once they'd bathed and smoothed their skin with oil, they took their picnic, sitting along the river's banks and waiting for all the clothes to dry in the hot noon sun. Now, fed to their heart's content, the princess and her retinue threw their veils to the wind, struck up a game of ball. White-armed Nausicaa led their singing, dancing beat, as lithe as Artemis with her arrows striding down from a high peak. Taygetus's towering ridge, or Eurimantus. So Taygetos is a mountain range in the Peloponnese, similarly to Eurimantos. It's a chain of mountains in kind of Arcadia. And in addition, it is also a river/mountain range in the Western Peloponnese. And Eurimantos, these mountains are the location where Heracles performed his labor involving the Eurymanthian boar. So we're just talking about like stuff coming down from high mountains, like beautiful clear air, gorgeous scenery. Again, this is like a utopia. I wasn't expecting picnic from Cables. From Cables. Oil stripping, yeah, is how Elphaba cleans herself in Gregory Maguire's Wicked because she has an allergy to water. That is correct. So oil stripping is a thing that definitely happens. Thrilled to race with the wild boar or bounding deer, and nymphs of the hills race with her, daughter of Zeus, whose shield is storm and thunder, ranging the hills in sport. And Leto's heart exults as head and shoulders over the rest her daughter rises. Unmistakable, she outshines them all, though all are lovely. Leto, of course, being the mother of Artemis and Apollo. So Nausicaa shone among her maids, a virgin, still unwed. But now, as she was about to fold her clothes and yoke the mules and turn for home again, now, clear-eyed Pallas thought of what came next. To make Odysseus wake and see this young beauty, and she would lead him to the Phaeacians' town, the ball. The princess suddenly tossed it to a maid, but it missed the girl. It splashed in a deep swirling pool, and they all shouted out. And that woke great Odysseus. He sat up with a start, puzzling, his head pounding. Man of misery, whose land have I lit on now? What are they here? Violent? Savage? Lawless? Or friendly to strangers, God-fearing men? Listen. Shouting. Echoing round me. Women, girls. Or the nymphs who haunt the rugged mountaintops and the river springs and meadows lush with grass. Am I really close to people who speak my language? Okay, up with you. See how the land lies. See for yourself now. Muttering so, great Odysseus crept out of the bushes, stripping off his massive hand a leafy branch from the tangled olive growth to shield his body, hide his private parts. And out he stalked as a mountain lion, exultant in his power, strides through wind and rain, and his eyes blaze, and he charges sheep or oxen or chases wild deer. But his hunger drives him on to go for flocks, even to raid the best defended homestead. So Odysseus moved out, about to mingle with all those lovely girls, naked now as he was, for the need drove him on. A terrible sight, all crusted, caked with brine. They scattered in panic down the jutting beaches. Only Alkinoos' daughter held fast, for Athena planted courage within her heart, dissolved the trembling in her limbs, and she firmly stood her ground and faced Odysseus. Torn now. Should he fling his arms around her knees, the young beauty plead for help, or stand back? Plead with a winning word, beg her to lead him to the town and lend him clothing. This was the better way, he thought. So that whole bit of should he fling his arms around her knees, that entire bit, this is what's known as the position of a suppliant. You're kneeling, you're clasping the knees of the person who you're supplicating, and you usually would then be reaching up towards his or her chin. It's a kind of formal gesture. We're gonna see stuff like that later with Eurylochus, trust me. So it is a gesture that symbolizes like the most utter helplessness in the person who's making the gesture, in the suppliant. It is just abject dependence upon the goodwill of the person they are suppliating. This also, and the reason why this is important is because it ends up applying a kind of physical and moral constraint onto the person who's being addressed, like who's standing there with their knees getting clasped. Like they kind of end up with a moral constraint because Zeus is actually the protector and champion of suppliants, and it's a big deal if you reject or revoke that, especially in a moment like this, because it's huge for somebody to go and make that gesture while butt naked. Yes, but he doesn't actually, he's thinking about, oh, do I do that? Remember, he's got the thing covering he's hiding his man parts. So Odysseus himself is refusing to take this position. He says, I shouldn't do that, because he doesn't want to cause any potential ill will to this stranger by essentially demanding and forcing on her this moral imperative to help. He'd rather use his wits and his gift of gab so that he's essentially welcomed without them feeling like they're beholden onto him, which can cause resentment. Because again, he doesn't know any of these people. He doesn't know where he is. He's like, okay, maybe let's not do that. Let's see. Ruby Dragonclaw. We are on about line 160-ish. We're about to be picking up there again. I don't know who you are or why you're here, but let me make this one thing clear. Put some clothes on because you're freaking me out. I mean, yeah, exactly. Oh crap, they're hot. Must be gods or children of gods. God damn it, game wizard. Yeah, poor Odysseus, like, what fresh hell have we got today? Literally. He goes, this is the better way, he thought. Plead now with a subtle, winning word, and stand well back. Don't clasp her knees. The girl might bridle. Yes. He launched in at once, endearing, sly, and suave. Here I am at your mercy, princess. Are you a goddess or a mortal? If one of the gods who rule the skies up there. You're Artemis to the life, the daughter of mighty Zeus. I see her now. Just look at your build, your bearing, your lithe, flowing grace. But if you're one of the mortals living here on earth, 3 times blessed are your father, your queenly mother, 3 times over your brothers too. How often their hearts must warm with joy to see you striding into the dances, such a bloom of beauty. True, but he is the one more blessed than all other men alive, that man who sways you with gifts and leads you home, his bride. I've never laid eyes on anyone like you, neither man nor woman. I look at you and a sense of wonder takes me. Ah, wait. Once I saw the like, in Delos, beside Apollo's altar, the young slip of a palm tree springing into the light. There I'd sailed, you see, with a great army in my wake, out on the long campaign that doomed my life to hardship. That vision, just as I stood there grazing rapt for hours, no shaft like that had ever risen up from the earth. So now I marvel at you, my lady, rapt, enthralled, too struck with awe to grasp you by the knees, though pain has ground me down. Only yesterday, the 20th day, did I escape the wine-dark sea. Till then, the waves and the rushing gales had swept me on from the island of Ogygia. Now some power has tossed me here, doubtless to suffer still more torments on your shores. I can't believe they'll stop. Long before that, the gods will give me more, still more. Compassion, princess, please. You, after all that I have suffered, you are the first I've come to. I know no one else, none in your city, none in your land. Show me the way to town. Give me a rag for cover. Just some cloth, some wrapper you carried with you here. And may the good gods give you all your heart desires, husband and house and lasting harmony too. No finer, greater gift in the world than that, when man and woman possess their home, 2 minds, 2 hearts that work as one, despair to their enemies, a joy to all their friends, their own best claim to glory. Fun Greek fact, the necessity that impels Odysseus to reach Nausicaa is not ananke, the one he's under with Calypso, but kre, necessity, the kind Baloo sings about. Different kind of bear. Yes. Mariana coming in with the Greek lore. Love it. Not the bear Riz. No, he's, the man's got the gift of gab. Aw. Very much kind of pulling from his own experience, but also choosing all the right words. Odysseus is a really good talker. Stranger, the white-armed princess answered staunchly. Friend, you're hardly a wicked man, and no fool, I'd say. It's Olympian Zeus who hands our fortunes out to each of us in turn, to the good and bad. However, Zeus prefers. He gave you pain, it seems. You simply have to bear it. But now, seeing you've reached our city and our land, you'll never lack for clothing or any other gift. The right of worn-out suppliants come our way. I'll show you our town, tell you our people's name. Phaeacians we are, who hold this city and this land. And I'm the daughter of generous King Alcinous. All our people's power stems from him. There we go. She called out to her girls with lovely braids. Stop, my friends. Why run when you see a man? Surely you don't think him an enemy, do you? There's no one alive. There never will be one who'd reach Phaeacian soil and lay it waste. The immortals love us far too much for that. We live too apart out in the surging sea, off at the world's end. No other mortals come to mingle with us. But here's an unlucky wanderer strayed our way, and we must tell him well. Every stranger and beggar comes from Zeus. Whatever scrap we give him, he'll be glad to get. This is also, again, tying to Xenia. Zeus is the god you usually link with Xenia, which is why he's also linked with things like suppliants. So, yeah, I was gonna say Xenia. Mariana, I was going there. This is all Xenia. Good Xenia. That's okay, I was doing good Xenia. Rich girl sees naked man approach and decide he's close enough to be to a bear. Damn wizard, I hate you. That's so good. Yeah, look at that poor little guy. Does he really look dangerous to you? Exactly. So quick, my girls, give our newfound friend some food and drink and bathe the man in the river, wherever you find some shelter from the wind. At that, they came to a halt and teased each other and led Odysseus down to a sheltered spot where he could find a seat, just as great Alcinous' daughter told them. They laid out cloak and shirt for him to wear. They gave him the golden flask of suppling olive oil and pressed him to bathe himself in the river's stream. Then, thoughtful Odysseus reassured the handmaids. Stand where you are, dear girls, a good way off, so I can rinse the brine from my shoulders now and rub myself with oil. How long it's been since oil touched my skin. But I won't bathe in front of you. I would be embarrassed. Stark naked before young girls with lovely braids. Odie with an eye twitch shivering from adventures. Let's listen up. So that bit of like, I would be embarrassed, like it's to remind us again as if we would totally have forgotten that he has been stark naked all this while, despite, he is shielding all his man bits with that olive branch in order to preserve the women's dignity and eyes, because he knew it was women he was hearing. But the interesting thing is that, we know men are regularly bathed by women. I mean, again, go back to books 3 and 4. We have Telemachus getting bathed by women and oiled by women. So Odysseus' modesty is actually speaking more to his current physical condition. Again, we've described him like crusted, caked with brine. He's a terrible sight. He looks like shit. In addition, we're also doing this because we need to facilitate what's about to happen, which is Athena stepping in to make his appearance even more grand and impressive to these strangers. Athena gonna come in and just be like, hold on, quick makeover, I got you, babe. Don't worry, I got it. It's not meant necessarily to be trauma from Calypso. It's more that he's like, I really look like garbage and I am a king, and I just, you know what? Let's not have any women I don't know touching me, because that could have problems if what if they decide they don't like me and then they use that against me also? Because again, he is a stranger on a place where we know strangers do not appear. The Phaeacians are a very insular society. On this little utopia, strangers don't show up, right? That scene from The Prince of Egypt. Yes, that's what I thought too. Don't look at me, I'm ugly. Lost, oily, naked bear man. We reading a Greek myth or a Norse saga? Yeah. He probably smells awful too. Yeah, no doubt. He looks and smells and obviously feels awful. It is very much laundry day for Odysseus. Oh man, it is time. The handmaids scurried off to tell their mistress. Great Odysseus, bathed in the river, scrubbed his body clean of brine that clung to his back and broad shoulders, scared away the brackish scurf that caked his head, and then, once he had bathed all over, rubbed in oil, and donned the clothes the virgin princess gave him. Zeus's daughter Athena made him taller to all eyes, his build more impressive now, and down from his brow she ran his curls like thick hyacinth clusters full of blooms. As a master craftsman washes gold over beaten silver, a man, the god of fire and Queen Athena, trained in every fine technique, and finishes off his latest effort, handsome work. So she lavished splendor over his head and shoulders now. This is literally a makeover. We just did a full-blown princess makeover here. We need him to look impressive because he's about to be walking potentially into a lion's den, into a highly political situation. You want him to seem impressive, right? And seem like you're going to want to listen to me and take me seriously. Who is this guy who seems to have a bit of the aura bestowed by the gods? Did Athena... So the whole thing, she doesn't actually make him taller. It's more an idea that he's standing up straight and she's making him seem very impressive. So it's instead of being the bedraggled dude who's been on the seas and been held prisoner and probably doesn't is not in the same kind of seeming physical condition when you look at him. She's now no, stand Full chest out, my dude. Good hair, good clothes. You got it, dude. You just realized what happens next in Biggest Face Mom. Oh yeah. Athena, chiropractician. She's giving him the uppies. And down to the beach he walked and sat apart, glistening in his glory, breathtaking. Yes, never forget, Odysseus is hot, especially when he cleans up. He's hot. And posture check. Yeah, posture check. We yassified Odysseus. Yes, we did. And the princess gazed in wonder, then turned to her maids with lovely braided hair. Listen, my white-armed girls, to what I tell you. The gods of Olympus can't be all against that man who's come to mingle among our noble people. I mean, at first he seemed appalling, I must say. Now he seems like a god who rules the skies up there. Oh, if only I had a man like that, called my husband, lived right here, pleased to stay forever. Enough. Give the stranger food and drink, my girls. Oh yeah, no, she's having a moment. She's having an absolute moment. Yeah, Homer, contain your thirst, holy moly. Nope, he's having Nausicaa speak for him, be like, woo, what a man, what a man, what a man. He's married, yeah. Well, okay, Maria, so to be fair, Nausicaa doesn't know that. She knows nothing about Odysseus, so, like, let her have a moment to be like, damn, he hot, though. Biggest Odysseus fan competition and Homer shows up as your competition. You lose. The only other one who might beat him is Athena. You lose. Look, let me just say, I know what a girl sounds like when she's just like, damn, no. She can appreciate the bouquet. She's not Calypso. Correct. She's just checking out the Greek. She's not ordering. She's just checking out the Greek menu. Oh my God. The jokes are so good. Yeah, we're window shopping here. She's just window shopping. She knows nothing about him. And there is the element of, ooh, he's different. He's the stranger, mysterious. Like, he's got all the vibes in the aura right now to make a young girl who's not yet married, like, to have a moment of, God damn, okay. Yeah, exactly, the Friday lean. She's window shopping our war crime hipster, correct. The exotic cuisine, exotic to her. Although they are clearly speaking, it seems, some version. I mean, these are sort of meant to be Greeks. They're speaking kind of the same language, but all foreigners to them, because again, Greece as a unified country, like that concept, it's non-existent. Even when Homer is writing this down, it's non-existent. They hung on her words and did her will at once, set before Odysseus food and drink, and he ate and drank. The great Odysseus, long deprived, so ravenous now. It seemed like years since he had tasted food. The white-armed princess thought of one last thing. Folding the clothes, she packed them in her painted wagon, hitched the sharp-hoofed mules, and climbed up herself. Nausicaa warmly urged her guest. Up with you now, my friend. Off to town we'll go. I'll see you into my wise father's palace, where I promise you'll meet all the best Phaeacians. Wait, let's do it this way. You seem no fool to me. While we're passing along the fields and plowlands, you follow the mules and wagons, stepping briskly with all my maids. I'll lead the way myself, but once we reach our city, ringed by walls and strong high towers too, with a fine harbor either side, and the causeway in is narrow. Along the road, the rolling ships are all hauled up, with a slipway cleared for every vessel. There's our assembly round Poseidon's royal precinct, built of quarried slabs planted deep in the earth. Here, the sailors tend their black ship's tackle, cables and sails, and plane their oar blades down. Phaeacians, you see, care nothing for bow or quiver, only for masts and oars and good trim ships themselves. We glory in our ships crossing the foaming seas. Which, yeah, we're going to hear a bit more about their ships. Their ships are truly unique. We're going to hear about these ships that they are different from the pentaconters, which would have been used by the Greeks and which we've sort of discussed when, especially in Epic, when I had my moment of 600 men. The pentaconters, these are very different ships. In addition, they're kind of magic. as we're going to hear later on when we see just how quickly Odysseus gets from Scheria to Ithaca, it's like in a moment because they are basically magic ships. And they're kind of powered by thought. It's wild. Again, Homer was like, no, Utopia, they got cool shit, okay? It's because they were an insular utopia. Nausicaa is kind of iconic. I love her. She is, though, isn't she? Okay. But I shrink from all our sea dogs' nasty gossip. Some old salt might mock us behind our backs. We have our share of insolent types in town. And one of the coarser sort spying us might say, now who's that tall, handsome stranger Nausicaa has in tow? Where'd she light on him? Her husband-to-be just wait. But who? Some shipwrecked stray she's taken up with some alien from abroad. Since nobody lives nearby. Unless it's really a god come down from the blue to answer all her prayers, to have her all his days. Good riddance, let the girl go, roving to find herself a man from foreign parts. She only spurns her own, countless Phaeacians round about who court her, nothing but our best. Can you tell she is over the haters? She's like, yeah, I got haters. So let's do something so I don't have to deal with this shit. Just like, just FYI, I'm letting you in. Novel Greek man with exposed navel. Wizard, was that a Torbeck quote? Oh my God, bloody. Thank you for making that reference. I love them. I don't remember what their names are, but whenever they come up on my TikTok, I laugh historically. Yes. I did not mean to pull a Torbeck voice, but I did. I heard sheeps instead of ships. Oh, nope, sorry, we're still just talking about ships. Right now, Nausicaa is basically my version of her doing an impression of these, like, as she calls them, like the old salt. She goes, we have our own insolent types. You know, you got the dudes who basically like catcall, or like the people who will basically kind of be haters and like gossip mongers, basically. So she's making fun of them in the way she's talking, hence I put on that. Legends of Evantris. Thank you, D&D Addict. That's what they're called. Anybody who's not familiar with why I was so distracted by the Torbeck thing, Legends of Evantris is a group of friends. They play D&D, and they have these characters who have very unique voices, and they are really funny. Like, I'm not that into D&D, and I've never, I think, watched even a whole campaign of theirs. I just see the clips that come across my TikTok, and they're hysterical. Like, I'm in stitches ready to pee myself when I see their stuff. Yeah, Nausicaa, yes, queen attitude. Yeah, she's a princess. She's got some, that's why I like her, and I think that's why Athena chooses her to be the one to have this moment, is Nausicaa, she's got some gumption. We'll say that sometimes it can be a little misplaced, very understandably in the way that it goes down, but that, like, you know what? She's got a bit to her. Again, all of the characters in Homer, men and women, will always have something to them, positive or negative, but he really tries to make them kind of feel like people. And that's something I love about the epics, and something that I also think, because these texts can feel really intimidating to people, and there's so much stuff going on that can be lost in all of the context that we no longer have, 2,000 plus years later, can kind of get lost in the sauce. People are like, oh, they're not believable, they're not whatever. I'm like, you just kind of, sometimes in a way, got to get past what feels like tough language and start hearing their voices in your head. And again, these were epic poems, these were oral, this was the oral tradition, so they were performed, which would have made it easier even then, I think, to get it. It is sad she's often cut from adaptations, but it's one of those things where it's kind of understandable that she gets cut, because it's just time you take up, say, on the screen when you need to be getting to other stuff. It's the difficulty of adaptation. So much stuff you always want to keep, and you're like sad you have to cut it, but you're like, I'm sorry, I need to. By the way, Phaeacian nothing to do with Phocian. Phocion. Why does Phocia? Oh, the Greek city. It's a city in Turkey, I believe. If I'm looking up, I'm assuming you're talking about a place. An ancient Ionian Greek city on the western coast of Anatolia. I don't believe this is supposed to be related to Phaeacia. Phaeacia really does exist as a kind of, like, rather like Calypso's Island and Aelia, they're kind of made up places. Tip, if that's what you're asking. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry, and please clarify if I misunderstood. Oh, Ruby, I'm glad that this makes it easier hearing me read it, because I have fun reading it. Anyway, so they'll scoff. Just think of the scandal that would face me then. I'd find fault with the girl who carried on that way, flouting her parents' wishes. Mother, father still alive, consorting with men before she tied the knot in public. Which again, this is part of why Odysseus was like, I'm not gonna grab her legs. I'm also not gonna have the maids like actually bathe me, as he doesn't know where they stand in the culture. Are they married? Are they not? He's assuming rightfully they're not, and these are maidens. He's like, tricky situation, but I need help. So Nausicaa is essentially, in this way, whether she realizes or not, kind of backing up Odysseus' choice to go about this the way that he did. Yeah, in your writings, you sometimes have to kill your darlings for the story all the time. Adaptation is the practice of killing your darlings. Trust me. No, stranger, listen closely to what I say. The sooner to win your swift voyage home at my father's hands. Now, you'll find a splendid grove along the road, poplars sacred to Pallas, a bubbling springs inside, and meadows run around it. There lies my father's estate, his blossoming orchard, too, as far from town as a man's strong shout can carry. Take a seat there, wait a while, and give us time to make it into town and reach my father's house. Then, when you think we're home, walk on yourself to the city, ask the way to my father's palace, generous King Alcinous. You cannot miss it. Even an innocent child could guide you there. No other Phaeacian's house is built like that. So grand, the palace of Alcinous, our great hero. Once the mansion and courtyard have enclosed you, go quickly across the hall until you reach my mother. Beside the hearth, she sits in the fire's glare, spinning yarn on a spindle, sea blue wool, a stirring sight, you'll see. She leans against a pillar, her ladies sit behind, and my father's throne is drawn up close beside her. There he sits and takes his wine, a mortal like a god. Go past him, grab my mother's knees, if you want to see the day of your return, rejoicing soon, even if your home's a world away. If only the queen will take you to her heart, then there's hope that you will see your loved ones reach your own grand house, your native land at last. So again, Nausicaa, she's got a noggin. She's like, okay, you didn't do this with me. Smart choice. It makes me think of the phrase, for anyone who's seen My Big Fat Greek Wedding, where it's like, the man is the head of the house. Yes, but the woman is the neck, and the neck can turn the head any way she wants. You get the queen, you'll get the king, because he cannot say no to his queen. They are a great couple. We have great couple goals here. She's like, don't come in trying to impress my dad. Go in and get my mom's sympathy, get my mom like, feeling for you. Done. Pretty much you're basically at that point almost in the clear. 99% in the clear, right? Girlie's playing chess. Exactly. And this is the thing, those who are not in the Discord do not get me having a super nerdy moment talking a bit about this. The idea of how women and men sort of got things done, especially prior to Zeus, who exists as a very interesting character in the mythology, is that women would get things done by talking. They were the negotiators. They were essentially almost like the really good ones at diplomacy. They were the convincers. They would talk and convince people to get things done. Whereas men were like brute force, pew. Somebody wrote down, and if you're in the chat, great, that like women, yappy, men, slappy. Men get things done by just like, okay, sure, do the thing. There you go. Boys, slappy, girls, yappy. Yes, exactly. So when Nausicaa is being like, you're gonna come in, you have to basically play it like we do, essentially. You can't just come in trying to be all like, well, look at me, I'm Odysseus. You gotta come in and play like this. And this is something that happened a lot more with male characters, as you would see if you look at it like a timeline, from Zeus onward, because Zeus exists as this interesting character who subverts the gender role expectations, where it's like women do talking, men do fighting. But Zeus comes in when he's about to get onto the Titanomachia, and he is like, I could just brute force my way, like without thinking, even though Gaia and Rhea have come to try and convince him. He goes, but he sees the value in how women convince others to help them get things done. So he starts using diplomacy, and he gets allies. He talks. He gets a bunch of Titans on his side. He gets, the other children of Cronus on his side. And he uses what was previously a singularly female gender role dynamic, before then being like, and now we go slappy, and now we bring out the fists. So this is what Zeus really represents, is this kind of subversion of the gender role stereotype and the way that he absorbs a lot of that. And some of the greatest of the Greek heroes and kings are also ones who can oftentimes talk. Not always, but the ones who can, it usually serves them pretty well. And Odysseus is obviously very good at that. So Nausicaa is being like, I need you to play to your strengths, which is the gift of gab that you got. Perfect. Fabulous. Mari, if you want to be added to the Discord, you can join as a free member on the Patreon, and you can find a link that's in there. You don't have to pay for the Patreon to get onto the Discord. Yeah, Odie can yap and slap. Exactly. Get you a man who can slap and yap. Exactly. Yeah, it's funny how people explain what's going to happen before it does Ocean 11 style like Milaus. Yeah, Biotip, it's a very big part of the structure of the epics. That this is like a thing that they do. You will often have characters say, okay, here's what you're gonna go and tell people, and then like X number of lines later, you hear, okay, I'm gonna tell you this thing that they told me to tell you, and you get it verbatim. And there's a lot of previewing what's going to happen. The Patreon link should work. I did set it up to be a like eternal link, essentially. But hold on, we're almost done. We've only got a handful of lines left, and then we can talk a bit more about this. My pop culture touchstone's immaculate. Thank you, Sam. At that, she touched the mules with her shining whip, and they quickly left the running stream behind. The team trotted on, their hooves wove in and out. She drove them back with care, so all the rest, maids and Odysseus, could keep the pace on foot, and she used the whip discreetly. The sun sank as they reached the hallowed grove, sacred to Athena, where Odysseus stopped and sat and said a prayer at once to mighty Zeus's daughter. Hear me, daughter of Zeus, whose shield is thunder, tireless one Athena. Now hear my prayer at last, for you never heard me then when I was shattered, when the famous god of earthquakes wrecked my craft. Grant that there among the Phaeacian people I may find some mercy and some love. So this is how, the reason that I got all up in arms, if you're thinking about my goodbye, for those who've seen that, this is how you would talk to a god where you feel you might have been abandoned. You're like, I feel this way. You're not directly saying that like, how dare you screw me over? It's like, I think you didn't hear me. He feels abandoned. When in fact he never was. She was there that whole time. She's one of the reasons he survived that whole thing, but still. So he prayed, and Athena heard his prayer, but she would not yet appear to him undisguised. She stood in awe of her father's brother, lord of the sea, who still seethed on, still churning with rage against the great Odysseus till he reached his native land. And that is never forget how powerful Poseidon is as a god because he's a son of Cronus. Those children of Cronus are on a different power scale from all the rest of the gods. He and his siblings are far more powerful than all the other gods, and that includes things like the second generation Olympians, so like Athena, Apollo, Artemis, Ares, all of them. So what we're seeing here is Athena being incredibly prudent in having this kind of caution and wariness, and she's just keeping an eye out. Because while Poseidon may know that now there's not much he can do in terms of like, he can't really kill Odysseus and he can't stop him from reaching home, that does not mean his rage has been abated. Specifically against Odysseus. Obviously, we've sort of covered Telemachus, so he's not really bothering with him, but he's still big mad at Odysseus. It's like, just because he can't get to him, that would in a way almost make him angrier, because now he's even more frustrated, and we're going to have to deal with Poseidon again. At least the gods will. But that's where we leave off Book 6. Yeah, everybody's side-eyeing 600 Strike. We do not discuss that here. I like to pretend 600 Strike doesn't exist. Wonderfully. Haha, haha. Yeah, Athena, literal embodiment of God's work in mysterious ways. Very much so. Very, very much so. It's like these stories had to be memorized in some sections, got shifted around sometimes. Question, would part of the previewing be because it's spoken words? Someone can walk away if they're like, nah. It could be. I would say it's, you know, a quirk of the genre, a quirk of the medium, if you will. Are there any... Odysseus is about to reach it. He's just going to be a petty A out it. Yeah, Poseidon is still, I mean, and understand, he's angry, he's pissed. And he's feeling frustrated, so yeah. Does anybody have questions about book 6 specifically, or from books 1 to 6 here? It's like the book cover blurb, I guess, kinda. So yes, do we have any questions about book 6? What happened here? Characters we met? What's going on? Anything. Before we then move into just like random chats, if we will. So figure there. Any specific Odyssey questions here? And not about future stuff. What is the... Birchwood? Shoot. But I wanted to check if we... Yes, Ruby, we did talk about the knee grasping thing. I heard that Odie never told Penelope about Nausicaa. Is that true? From what I remember, I don't think he mentions her specifically. I don't really have any thoughts on it. He has no reason to mention her specifically. She helped him out. He's going to talk about the Phaeacians more, like the Phaeacians helped me out. There's no reason to single her out. Like, why bother? Because she ends up being kind of a girl with a crush, but Odie doesn't do anything about it, so. Mari, Mad, will you voice a suitor like Torbeck? Maybe. I'll consider it. If there's a suitor I can give the Torbeck voice to. Who's stronger, Zeus or Poseidon? Zeus. Zeus is the singularly most strongest god of them all. It is even stated in the Iliad. Like, no one can stop him. He is the top. Love that in a Poseidon worship island, they send him to the Athena waiting room. Yeah. It is a very strong, like, Poseidon-centric kind of worship, because obviously they're all about their ships and their masts, so they would pay a lot of attention to Poseidon. That's going to come back. We're going to have to circle back to that. The Greek text here is amazing. Poseidon is described by 2 words that describe rage, but also vehement, eager. He really was furious and wanted to be so with Odysseus. Yeah. And that's why it's like the unending rage of Poseidon. Like, it is a different kind of anger. Sorry, why is Nausicaa continuously referred to as white-armed? Likely it means that she is able to spend time inside in the shade, which would say that she does not have to go out and work. So it's just saying that, oh, as much as they do tan quickly, those good Greek genes, but it means that she's able to rest inside and be like an air quotes proper lady about it. I'm assuming that's why they go on about white-armed, but Mariana, as our resident Greek expert here, like literally language-wise, can back me up if I'm getting just interesting translation quirks. But in the Wilson translation, book 6 is A Princess and Her Laundry. Thoughts? Yeah, no. Whatever you name the books is whatever you name them. You're pretty much just saying, here's what the book is about. This is called The Princess and the Stranger. The Princess and Her Laundry, sure. Suitor, just because there's a goalie doesn't mean you can't. Yeah, exactly. Would Heracles solo Zeus? No, never. He never would. No mortal would do that. Not unless you just want to immediately die, and he would die. Heracles may be that guy, but That's sacrilege to even consider yourself to be able to do that. Big exception being melee of combat, but Zeus does not go down to the battlefield in human combat. Oceancy is often angry and unforgiving for fools who don't respect it, so why should Poseidon be any different? Correct. Would you mind giving a quick recap of books 1 to 6? I missed a couple lives and haven't had time to go back and watch them. The first 4 books are Telemachus figuring his shit out in terms of Ithaca and what he's going to do. He goes to meet with Nestor and Menelaus. They tell him what they know of his father, and also, hey, here's some tips on how to try and deal with the suitors, although your situation is super unique. Book 5 is we finally meet Odysseus on Calypso's island. We learned that Calypso's the absolute fucking worst. Odysseus is allowed to leave. He survives the 20-day journey by the skin of his teeth thanks to a magic shawl, because Poseidon big mad. And then now we're here, and he's met the princess of the Phaeacians, and he's going to be entering into the palace to ask for help, and then also eventually tell his story. Yeah, Hercules might be that guy, but Zeus is that god. It's also just this idea of humans deciding to one-on-one a god. It's just, no. Like, that's a thought process that, frankly, if you're going to look at the Greek myth, erase that from your mind. Just don't do it. Because when humans start trying to put themselves in any way on the same level of a god, being either I could take them or I want to go to Olympus, whatever, you're going to get smited. The story of Bellerophon or Bellerophon that's one of the big, you could say, morals of his story is he says, I'm on the Pegasus, I could fly up to Olympus. He doesn't even make it halfway before Zeus is like, oh, fuck no. Nice try. Hubris, that's adorable. If reaching the Phaeacians was basically the guarantee of Odie getting home, why would Athena still be worried about Poseidon's rage? He could still fuck things up somehow. It's guaranteed that he's gonna make it home, but Poseidon can still make his life more difficult in different ways. So she's keeping a weather eye on her uncle, because he is that powerful. Yeah, we do also learn Calypso did indeed force Odysseus to sleep with her. We get that stated very explicitly in the Odyssey. So far, I see naked Odysseus as a strength in spite of Mac's vulnerability. Yeah. And also what's interesting, Introvert, when you think of how he covers himself, I mean, his man bits. There was, I can't remember who the writer was, but much, much later on, I don't even think it was a Greek writer, basically he was describing him as like the original gentleman, basically, that he is like, let me not walk out like with everything dangling out on display, let me cover. It's a sense of dignity for me, but also a sense of dignity for these, strange young women who I don't know. Hubris is adorable, yeah. Penelope is also described as white-armed. White-armed is a phrase used for a lot of women, and it usually just means they are probably of some sort of noble status. I believe the nymph Ino got that epithet as well. Smited, smitten, smoted, yeah, whatever word it is. Has Odysseus ever get a promise on the river Styx from a god? So how could he use it to help him get home? The only promise he gets from the river Styx, in terms of swearing by the river Styx, is he gets Calypso to make that in book 5. Specifically that she's not trying to trick him, because when he hears he's being allowed to go home, he doesn't believe it at first. He's just like, I want you to promise me that this is not some trick. To get that kind of promise of a god, the god has to consent to it. Though that is a promise that is not made lightly by a divine figure, because there are serious consequences to it. And also he likely would not do it in order to get help going home, because then he doesn't get any glory from getting home, because they'd just be like, oh, you made a god promise to get you home? Well, then what the fuck were you, like, what did you even do? The Greek myths are very much, these heroes have to do it themselves. You have to be able and willing to do it yourself. Every now and then you might get some help, you might get some cool gear, but you're gonna have to do the thing, whatever the thing is, yourself. That's why Zeus says, like, he's gonna have to build the raft that he sails out on. Sure, Calypso will give him supplies, whatever, but he has to build the raft, and he has to sail it to the Phaeacians. You gotta do it yourself. If you don't, what kind of fucking hero are you? If he'd ridden on the carriage with the princess, would have violated proper etiquette at the time, which has not been a great look. That's Ruby, that's kind of what Nausicaa is talking about when she's quoting like what a gossip monger would say. It's not a good look. She's, virgin, unmarried, cavorting with a man like that is a bad look for both of them. And considering he is a stranger in a strange land, if you will, like, he knows better than to take a chance like that. Absolutely not. Is there a god eating popcorn on Heroes? Probably. Do nymphs or similar beings have physical characteristics different from normal humans? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. There's like it's like, a character is sort of divine, not human, not mortal. You could say there's like an aura about them. But yes, sometimes they are described very specifically, sometimes they're not. But there was clearly evidence and ability to say, I think you're a nymph. I think you're not a human. Not exactly about these chapters, maybe do we have the original ancient Greek of Iliad and or Odyssey, or is it a case of medieval translation being retranslated? As in, do we have it written down in the ancient Greek? Yes, because it's written in a very specific dialect of ancient Greek. So it's not even just a dialect, it's like a dialect of a dialect. Yes, the chapter's over. It's a Homeric Greek is what it's said to be written in. And Homeric Greek, I think, is a dialect of Attic Greek, I think, I could be wrong, which is a dialect of ancient Greek. So we do have, there were at least the ability to have it in its original ancient Greek when it was written down, whenever it was written down, or even later, still written in that dialect. It's a very specific dialect. You can't really go around changing it if you're going to keep it in ancient Greek. It just gets translated, dialectception really, and then get translated into like modern Greek or other languages. This might be a loaded question, but what is the scope of meaning for the epithet godlike? Apologies if you've covered this. The scope, what do you mean the epithet godlike? Can you give me a specific example, Becca? And I can better give you. Ionic dialect. Mariana, I knew I was wrong with the etiquette. Yeah, it's a dialect. Homeric Greek is a dialect of the Ionic dialect.